Hello, I'm Natasha Chilingarian.
And I'm Michael Ogden. This is Shared Accounts with CU Times, sponsored this month by Velera, formerly PSU and Co-op Solutions. They're together now and called Velera. Thank you, Velera. So I'm being told that I'm interrupting this regularly scheduled show for something special from Natasha. So, Natasha, take it away.
That's right, Michael. So I decided it was time I took control of this introductory portion of the
Oh,
pod.
okay, take it. Yeah.
You've had the pleasure of embarrassing me several times already by
Oh,
quizzing me
goodness.
live on my credit union industry knowledge. So I'm going to turn the tables on you and put you in the hot seat this time. You are
Great.
going to participate in a 5-question quiz called CU Times Juicy Story History.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Yeah, it's
right.
gonna be fun.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So just to provide a little background for our listeners real quick here before we get started, as editors for a news organization, there's slow news days and there are big news days. And the big news days, they often entail potentially reporting on a scandal of some kind, an
Uh-huh.
embezzlement, an arrest, a major lawsuit, an abrupt firing of a credit union leader,
Sure.
things of that nature. And so now I do want to point out our goal is we're not trying to make light of the harm that was caused by, these types of events and
Okay.
situations. People have gotten hurt in the process, but from our perspective, big stories are exciting. And so this quiz should
Okay.
be, I thought it might be kind of a fascinating
Ugh.
walk down memory lane for us, hopefully.
Oh my God. This is going
Yeah.
to be so hard. Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. Okay.
I'm
All right,
terrible
Michael.
at this.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. First question. What major data breach led CU Times readers to question whether some employees of the NCUA were being faithful to their spouses?
Oh my God. What data breach
I think this was
was
before you
that?
came to CU Times, so I have to
Really?
think back. It might be. I think it
Been
might
a
have been
long.
a little before that.
I remember the story. I don't know. I can't
You don't
remember the
know.
name of the
Okay,
data breach.
okay, that's fine. The answer is the Ashley Madison hack.
Ashley
Yes.
Madison.
No, just a little background. So in 2015, there
Oh,
was a major data breach at Ashley
there
Madison,
it
the dating
is.
website for people seeking extramarital affairs.
Ah,
Of the more than 15,000 .gov and .mil email addresses released in a data dump of
uh-huh.
alleged Ashley Madison users, 4 of them belonged to NCUA employees. 2
Ah,
of those email addresses were confirmed to be those of Deputy
yeah,
Director John Cucci,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
John, and
yeah,
an examinations coordinator, an unnamed
yeah.
person. The 2 other email addresses could not be confirmed.
Uh,
We would like to note that although the email addresses belong to NCUA employees, that does not prove that they actually had an affair or
sure,
that they even
sure, sure,
created
sure.
the profiles themselves. So,
God, what a story back then. I forgot about
okay,
that.
it sure
Okay,
was.
great.
Question number 2.
Hmm.
What was the name of the former NCUA general counsel who, in early 2020, was accused of taking his former deputy, Laura
Formerly,
Daly Sims, out drinking and to strip clubs on
strip
government time
clubs.
in a
Uh,
scathing inspector general report?
terrible with names. I don't
I
remember. I
know.
remember the story well, and I
Yes.
remember working on it with David Bauman,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember very well that story.
and just shocked at reading the report. I don't remember the
Mhm.
guy's name. I really
That's
don't.
okay. Yeah, I didn't either. I
Okay.
had to look it up. The answer is Michael McKenna.
Oh, Mike.
And just
Okay,
to
I don't
yeah,
remember
Mike
the name.
McKenna.
Okay.
Yeah, just
God,
there's a little more background for our readers here, just because it's a kind of a crazy story.
it was
According to the
crazy.
report, his deputy Laura said she felt pressured to engage in inappropriate behavior with McKenna, with him
Yeah.
telling her that he could help get her the general counsel job when he
Mm,
retired.
mhm.
Also, they not only allegedly went out drinking into strip clubs, but also allegedly took marijuana edibles on a business trip to New York.
Sure.
And just as the report came out, McKenna conveniently retired. No, that worked
Mhm.
out well for him. Laura
Uh-huh.
went on to work for a private law firm.
Right.
The incident also led to the NCUA's creation of an ethics office and the
Yeah.
appointment of an ethics attorney. Side note also on this story, lucky for McKenna, we reported the story on March 6, 2020, so it was quickly overshadowed by another major news story
Oh, yeah, pandemic, yeah.
of the pandemic. So,
Also remember reaching out to her, to both of them.
oh yeah.
There's a lot of stuff we didn't report, but God, what an ugly story, and I felt bad, especially on her end.
I did, yeah, I felt really yeah,
Anyway, okay,
yeah. So,
go ahead.
shout out
Go
to
ahead.
Laura, hope she's doing
Yeah,
well now. That was
I do
yeah,
too.
that was tough. Okay. Alright, let's give the NCUA a break for
Okay.
question number 3. What is the name of the former credit union CEO who was at the center of a major embezzlement scheme, who also, according to their defense attorney, would often wash down hydrocodone pills with a bottle of codeine-laced syrup at their desk?
This wasn't Cam Wong, was it?
Yes, it was Kim
It
Wong.
was
Yeah,
Cam Wong? I
it
forgot
was,
about
yeah.
that part.
You don't
Okay.
remember that part? Oh, I
I
remember that, yeah.
forgot about
Peter
that
wrote
part.
about it in a few stories.
Cam
Yeah, so
Wong.
Pam Wong, the former CEO of Municipal Credit Union in New York City,
Yeah.
who
Mhm.
was released from prison last year after serving 3 years
Yep.
and 9 months for his role in a $10 million embezzlement scheme, apparently had a bit of a drug problem.
Yep.
Another fun
God.
fact about that
Yeah.
case,
Mhm.
well, 2 fun facts. He allegedly obtained the drugs from one of his supervisory committee members.
That's it. I forgot about that part.
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess
Yeah.
and then apparently he also spent $5.5 million of his embezzled funds on lottery tickets. And as
Yeah.
far as I know, he didn't even win the lottery. It was like, what a
No.
waste. Seriously.
I will say to MCU's credit, damn it if they haven't come back so
What a
strong,
comeback story. Yeah, that was
because everybody got arrested, and, I mean, all the
yeah,
way to that judge that was in oh my god, she was a board
that
member and
was
a
wild.
judge there.
Right. Like the entire
Anyway, so
leadership
bravo
team.
to
Yeah,
that MCU administration now, kudos.
absolutely. Yeah, great
Ugh,
comeback there. And
Cam
by the way, I would
Wong.
love to see someone do a documentary on Cam Wong. I would just be curious to know what is this
Hey,
dude's
man,
deal? Yeah,
Peter Strasniak, who did all the reporting on it, he and I talk about that on occasion. Like, God, we'd love to get an
yeah,
interview with him and
yeah.
see what's going on.
That would be great. We'll
Okay.
see. Okay, all right, question number 4. Which
Okay.
credit union took some heat for spending millions on a private plane for its executives?
PenFed.
Correct. Yes, that was
Okay.
PenFed. Okay, we can move on. Final
Okay.
question here. Which credit union was at the center of a somewhat unusual sexual harassment lawsuit in which a former male executive accused 2 former female CEOs of sexually harassing, discriminating against,
Oh,
and ultimately unjustly
yeah.
firing him?
Again, that was a Peter
It was a
story. I
Peter,
don't I
yes.
don't remember the name of the credit union.
Okay.
I remember the story, but I don't remember the credit union.
It was On Path Federal Credit
On
Union
path. Okay.
in Metairie, Louisiana, yes.
Yeah,
Matt
yeah.
Harney, a former employee,
Mhm.
sued Mignon Tournay and
Yeah,
Sonia
yeah.
Jarvis
Yep.
of these acts in 2020,
Yep.
and just for the record, that lawsuit was dismissed in 2021.
Mm.
So,
God.
all right.
Okay.
Well, Michael, you only got 2 out of 5 right here. Looks like you need to
Two.
spend some more time in our story archives.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
You're right. I love that. That was fun.
Good, glad, I'm glad. All right, and on that note, let's move on to more positive credit union news. Welcome to Shared Accounts with CU Times.
Coming up, Chris Corse, who is Velera's Principal of Emerging Services, joins us on the pod. We had a really nice chat with him about credit union and fintech partnerships and why these relationships have turned into such a crucial part for the existence of credit unions. Stay tuned for that. First up, let's bring in Natasha again. Natasha, nice work on the quiz.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I loved it. I know nothing anymore. I can't
Oh,
retain
well,
anything.
no, it's just we do so many stories, and a lot of these were
We
years ago, so you can't
we
really
do. Well, and what was funny,
remember.
you mentioned the private plane, the PenFed thing, and that I remember came about. Peter got a hold of PenFed's annual report,
Right.
and he saw a line item and it said private plane. He was like, huh? He's like, credit unions don't have private plane,
It said
wouldn't it?
aircraft equipment was
Aircraft.
what was
There it
written, but
is.
yeah, yeah, and then I
Yeah.
think it was also brought to attention because Chip Filson wrote about it in his blog
Oh,
and kind of
oh,
questioned
right.
it, like, "Why
Okay.
are we spending millions on a private plane when it could be
Right.
something for the
What a funny
members
story.
or
But
more
you
in
know
line
what?
with"
It was unusual, but good for PenFed.
Yeah,
But I enjoyed that quiz. Thank you for that.
good, good, I am glad.
Usually at this point, we ask each other what we watched this past week, but we're going a little long today, and we have a really great interview
Right.
with Chris coming up. But I
Yeah,
wanted to ask very quickly, we were chatting a bit earlier about kind of some big media news that came out
yeah.
this morning. after 10 years, The Onion, the humor
Right,
newspaper,
right.
they are starting to print again.
Yeah, yeah, that is crazy. So, yeah, I did see you shared the article this morning. I haven't gotten a chance to
Mhm.
read it yet. Now, what are they doing then? They're gonna start doing, like, a monthly magazine, or what's their
No, they're
plan?
just reverting back to their old print ways, but you can pay
Wow.
a subscription of $5 a month to get it delivered to your home or office or whatever. But they turned into online only a decade ago. And one of the reasons the editors, there's a great New York Times piece about it this morning. And
Hmm.
one of the editors was saying basically the internet has become just a garbage fire.
Yeah,
And
that's an
and with
understatement.
AI articles being written, they were like,
Absolutely.
"Whoa, even we can't stand the internet," and The Onion.
Yeah, it's
And so they
true.
were like, "We've gotta try to save this organization." So they believe, and they said it in the article, that print is the future. And I was like, "This is
Hmm.
amazing, guys."
That is
That
really
I
interesting. Do you agree with that? How do you feel about going back to print and if people will
if we went back
embrace
to
it?
print, that would terrify me, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Everybody in the media space, whether it's television, radio, newspaper, online news, we're all trying to figure out what works.
Right.
And my brother's a news anchor in Denver. We do what we do, Natasha. And I don't know, is this going to work?
Yeah, I mean, we're
What's
all just
sustainable?
kind of seeing how it goes. It is interesting how, people will often predict the future
Yeah.
going, "Oh, it's gonna be all like this. It's gonna be, oh, we're gonna be, I don't know, reading a hologram of a story through these glasses or something," that's
Yeah.
like sounds ridiculous. But I think when it comes down to it, maybe who we are at the core as
Mm,
humans like certain things and feel comfortable with certain things. Like, for example, I saw it was another New York Times article. It was like a restaurant. It was a picture of like a robot like going up to serve the food or something,
yeah.
like a
Right.
but they said that's not taking off because people go to a restaurant because they want human interaction. They wanna banter with the waiter, and
Yeah.
that's what they're looking for. So, I think there's certain things, and, maybe this is sort of one of them. I mean, I
Yeah.
know people that still like to only read physical books and don't use a Kindle to read.
Yeah.
I use a Kindle just because I just don't have the space, and I read a
Hmm.
lot of books, so I do use the Kindle.
Yeah.
But I think there's definitely something to be said about physical printed
Yeah.
media.
Now, two quick things. One, I would love to hear from our audience. What do they prefer as far as media?
Absolutely.
How
Yeah,
how they consume it.
right.
But 2 years ago, in the late '90s, because The Onion was headquartered here in Madison. This is
Oh,
where it
really? Oh.
started, and they had a really lousy office, real dump, just off State Street downtown. I used to go in there on occasion and talk to them. I was a reporter in town.
Oh, fun. That's fun.
So, all of them are gone. They're long gone, and they're headquartered in Chicago now. So I'm just interested in how this evolves because they seem, and this may just be a kind of a retro way of thinking about the Onion because it used to just be free on these newsstands all over the city, and
Hmm, yeah.
so we'll see how it goes.
Be
But I'm
interesting. Yeah, I'm very interested to see how it evolves.
I'm
Absolutely.
encouraged. I'll say it that way.
Yeah. No, it is. It's refreshing. It's a little
It is.
refreshing. It's like we
Yep.
don't have to be sucked into this vacuum of garbage, like you said, on the internet.
Right. I hate it.
So, yeah, I think going back to quality over quantity again is part of
Quality
it.
and consistency are my
Mhm.
two bars, for
Right, right.
measurement.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'd love to hear from readers, listeners as well on that
Mhm.
to see what they think. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, let's move on to our interview. As you mentioned earlier, we had a great discussion with Chris Corse from Velera. It was fun getting to know him. He's fairly new to the credit union industry, which is kind of fun to hear from I think he has kind of a fresh
Yeah.
perspective on it.
Mhm.
Although he did point out that he's became a member of a credit union a while back, thanks to his wife, who sounded like she got him to become a member.
Mhm.
So she must definitely be a keeper. I was gonna say that, I didn't get a chance to say it to him during the interview, but I thought
Uh,
that'd be a good little thing to throw in.
that's
And yeah,
funny.
we had a great discussion with him about fintechs. One of the things we talked about was how fintechs kind of switch from being
Mhm.
foes of credit unions to being true partners.
Yeah.
He had a really good outlook on that, talked about lots of other things related to fintechs. He also shared a bit with us about a hidden talent of his. So
Oh,
stay
yeah.
tuned for that. We have all that coming up next.
Hey, listeners, this episode is sponsored by Velera, formerly PSU Co op Solutions, the nation's premier payments credit union service organization and an integrated financial technology solutions provider. Velera serves more than 4,000 financial institutions throughout North America, operating with velocity to help its clients keep pace with the rapid momentum of change and fuel growth in this new era of financial services. Velera, check them out.
Joining us in the virtual studio today is Chris Corse, Principal of Emerging Services at Velera. Chris, hey, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Great to have you.
We're happy to have you. Welcome. All right, Chris. Well, first, let's get a little bit of background just on you and your professional background in the credit union industry. How long have you been involved in the credit union industry? And can you just give us a little background on how you got involved in the credit union space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been directly involved in the credit union industry for 5.5 years. And I
Mhm.
say directly in air quotes. I'll get back to that here shortly.
Okay.
So I started off at Legacy Co op before our merger into Valera.
Hmm.
And there I spent 3 years in corporate strategy. So I essentially served as an internal consultant for the company to really help lead the strategic direction of it, as well as focusing on new market entry research. This was a really cool opportunity because it allowed me to learn the credit union industry at a rapid pace, including, who the major core providers are, who the major
Mhm.
digital banking providers are, etc.
Mhm.
And then after that, I switched over to fintech partnerships. And what I've mainly been doing there is focusing on referral partnerships. And more recently, I got a new position at Velera
Mhm.
as principal of emerging partnerships. So essentially, what I do is I talk to fintechs all day, every day. And I kind of serve as like the top of funnel contact for new fintech partnerships at the company. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
essentially, I vet fintechs and determine whether they're a good fit for partnership. Now, kind of getting back to that directly in air quotes that I said earlier. So I've actually been a credit union member for 6 years, which
Oh,
coincides how long I've been married. After my
oh.
wife and I got married, she was a credit union member. And so she got me on board to join a local credit union here in North Carolina. And so
Hmm.
after I had that really good experience of onboarding, I saw this position and decided to apply because I had that great experience. So I'd call it fate, but nonetheless, I'm really happy that it happened.
Chris, do you want to shout out your credit union?
Sure, I bank at a state employees credit union.
Oh, yes. They are not small. They are great. So let's get into the meat of the matter about the fintech issue. So, really, the baseline question we want to start off with is this: are fintechs important to credit unions, but when it comes to innovation?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, innovation and fintechs really run hand in hand. And
Mhm.
in my opinion, I do think that this is the best way in which credit unions can compete against the big banks and the neobanks. So maybe just to start and to kind of clarify the use case that I'm talking about on fintech partnerships. So
Okay.
many in the industry will call this embedded fintech, which, it's not to be confused with embedded finance or BaaS. I love that acronym for banking as a service.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But essentially, the use case that I'm referring to is when you integrate a fintech solution into your digital banking app or adding products and services on top of your core or even your LOS. So, yes, to answer your question, I do believe that fintechs are extremely important to credit unions when it comes to innovation.
So, then what are the values to credit unions in terms of engaging with the fintechs?
So, I could certainly talk for hours on this, but I'll try and slim it down to a couple. So,
Okay.
I'd say the first one is kind of a no brainer, right? It allows credit unions to have expanded products and services. And I think that this one is not a secret. And really, what it allows you to do as a credit union is to bring new products to market without having that internal dev team. Naturally, this helps with things like member experience and again, kind of helping you compete against those big banks and the neobanks and even the tech companies.
Hmm.
Now, I should probably mention early on that bringing to market new products via fintech partnerships, it could vary based on size in terms of the ability to ingest fintechs. Actually, I'd probably even go a little bit further and say instead of size, technical capabilities, because I know some small credit unions who are extremely technically advanced. But what I mean by all this is that even if you might not be as technically advanced and you might be on a lesser used core, I do think that all credit unions will find value in fintech partnerships. And that's
Hmm.
because fintechs are willing to build API integrations into any system. And so, naturally, and I wanted to talk about this early on, one could be not remiss to say that, okay, well, does this fintech just want to win my business?
Yeah.
And that's a natural reaction. However, from my experience, I've found that fintechs are really willing to go the extra mile for credit unions of all sizes and technical capabilities, whether it be a white labeling or a configuration request. So, in terms of other values, naturally, innovation and agility is a big one, another no
Hmm.
brainer here. But it's worth calling out that Gen Z certainly places a high emphasis on new innovation and agility. And that's because Gen Z is comparing your experience at your credit union to that of big tech companies. So I do think that bringing to market new products via partnerships is important from a speed perspective. And then lastly, I'd say access to advanced technology is another big one. So I think a good example here is open banking. So with the
Yeah.
CFPB's 1033 ruling coming probably in October or sometime around then,
Hmm.
credit unions will need to be compliant sooner rather than later. And I do think that this is a good example of how partnering with a fintech can help with that. And to even go a little bit further on that open banking example, I think the ones who are not just going to be senders of data, but recipients of data as well, will be the ones that truly advance in the open banking space. And so I think that's just an example of how partnering with fintechs can help.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Okay. So, Chris, in terms of credit unions building their external partnerships, looking externally to fintech companies and building those partnerships with them, how would you say they should be engaging with them to improve their business strategies? So, I guess how does the fintech building that on top of your existing digital banking, how can that kind of, from the bigger picture, help build the credit union's overall strategy?
So, in terms of how credit unions should be kind of working with fintechs externally, I'd say my number one thing that I would do if you are a credit union and you're trying to really grasp your fintech strategy is first identify the use case that you're trying to solve. So, for me, I think it can be extremely overwhelming if you're a credit union and you start looking at market segments first. So, as an example, if you're a credit union and you just immediately say, I want a financial wellness product, I would actually say, don't go with that approach, but instead say, what are you looking for? Do you need new deposits? Do you want an improved member experience? And instead, start with that and then build the market segment that you want to go after
Hmm.
that. And then, secondly, what I would say in terms of your external strategy is utilize one of, in my opinion, the credit union market's greatest strength, which is its network. So, what I would do is I would talk to your peers and see who they use, or I would leverage fintech programs that are out there to help identify best of breed players. So, here at Velera, we just launched something called the Fintech Engagement Program. It's like a fintech library of fintechs that we've liked and that we've done some light due diligence on in terms of a solution and capability perspective. And so, what we can do is we can help credit unions identify those use cases and then match them with fintechs that meet what they're looking for. And because we've done that vetting process that I just mentioned, we can go a step further. So, as an example, if you're a credit union and you come to us and say, hey, I need help with deposits and my digital banking platform is Lumen Digital, what we can do is we can look at our database and match the two and then
Hmm.
present various fintechs to that credit union that help with deposits and are integrated with Lumen Digital. So I do think there's a couple of things that they can do.
Sure.
So, internally, Chris, let's go through some steps credit unions should potentially take, or even maybe some organizational shifts that should happen, or if they should happen to venture out on a fintech partnership. What should credit union executives be considering?
This is a great question. So, in my opinion, what has worked well with the credit unions that I've spoken to is
Uh-huh.
maintaining a shared responsibility for exploring partnerships among the C suite or the senior management team, whoever it may be. So, put another way, rather than one singular person devoting their time to new partnerships, I think that each member of that C suite or whoever it may be should be in charge of prospecting for new fintechs within their respective areas. And I do believe that that's driven from fostering a culture of innovation.
Yep.
So for me personally at Velera, I love to bring other Velera employees into conversations with fintechs in which that Velera employee is an expert in that specific area. And so
Hmm.
naturally, one of the first questions that I get when I talk to people about this kind of culture of innovation is that, sure, it sounds great, but for me personally, I like to dive deeper into that and tell them how would I do that. And so
Hmm.
for me, I think that starts with getting buy-in from your board. So I would reiterate that again, fintechs really want to do everything in their power to make working with them easier. And so what I would do is I would work with that fintech on gathering information that you can take to your board. So, as an example, if cost is a chief concern for your credit union, talk to the fintech about what it would require for you to break even on your investment and then determine the feasibility of that break even. Or if you're concerned about expending a lot of internal resources into something that may or may not work, I mean, let's call it how it is, talk to the fintech about maybe doing a pilot first with your internal
Hmm.
employees. And then lastly, if you are worried that you may not have the internal resources required to vet that fintech from a risk and compliance perspective, I certainly appreciate that concern. Just know that there are third-party firms out there that can help you with that risk review of that fintech. So they'll be the ones reading that SOC 2 Type 2 or looking at those audited financials, whatever it may be, which could be cheaper than hiring internal staff.
Well, and that's interesting because we have seen some credit unions actually hire or appoint a director of fintech
Yep.
partnerships, but
That's a
it's like
great point.
you
Yeah.
probably don't want to keep it so siloed. Like you're saying, you want it to be part of the entire culture of the credit union. So, is that something that you advise against, like having like one specific person appointed in charge of that, and it should be a little more spread out?
Not necessarily. What I would say is certainly that position is warranted, but I would just emphasize that that position should absolutely work with the entire senior management team on ensuring that the fintech strategy that that person is leading kind of aligns with their department and identifies fintechs that can ultimately help each of those departments in conjunction with that team because ultimately myself is a great example. I, know a lot about certain market segments, but I would trust someone in Velera internally who specializes in a certain product more than myself. And so, what I mean by that is pulling in individuals who can help you with your vetting process is vital.
Mhm.
Right, right, absolutely. All right, so then what do you see as possible blind spots or challenge areas that might negatively impact a credit union's chance of accomplishing its business goals in a fintech partnership? So, what are some of their biggest pain points that you're seeing out there? What are they getting wrong, I guess, or could be getting wrong when pursuing a fintech partnership?
For me, I think a number one blind spot to consider is ensuring that you and your credit union align with the fintech on goals, vision, and timeline, right? It's something simple, but it's really important. And so I think clear communication at the onset of the objectives you are trying to reach with that credit union is important. And perhaps even more important is that it's regularly revisited. So, as an example, you can tell the fintech, we want X% adoption by X date, and if you're missing that mark, you should have regular conversations on why that is. But I also think that you do need to share a similar vision. So if you want your credit union to be at the forefront of new and innovative technology in this specific area that the fintech specializes in, make that well known and ensure that their roadmap aligns with your expectations to be that very like innovative credit union. And in a similar vein, I would ensure that their solution can scale and evolve with your needs over time. And then lastly, I would also spend a lot of time discussing their service model and SLAs. So oftentimes, when I'm talking to credit unions about their satisfactions with fintechs, surprisingly, the number one response that I get with a satisfied credit union for a fintech is their servicing model. And
Mhm.
to take that perhaps a little deeper, at one of our client listening posts in the spring, I was talking to some credit unions about which brands really resonate well with them. And one of the top brands that was listed was in an industry that might shock you
Hmm.
because it's often looked at negatively, which was the airline industry. And the company was Delta Airlines. And so I asked them why, and the answer was service. And so I think that in a day and age where it's super easy to be distracted by
Mm.
bells and whistles or products and features and functionality, I think that it's important to understand that service is extremely important. And I could even ask them to play out specific scenarios of things that could go wrong and how they would address it. So I'd say service is also very big.
You have written about what you called, quote, the case for credit union fintech partnership. So give me a second. I have a bit of a preamble here to this question. In previous credit union history, just a decade ago, or maybe even shorter, fintechs were considered potential foes and disruptors to the credit union industry. And a while back, in a previous gig in the credit union space, again, more than 10 years ago, it was like a clash of, to put it in football terms, Michigan and Ohio State fans.
Sure.
We just hate each other. We don't trust each other. But now it's like if Michigan and Ohio State are like, oh, we're all friends now. We're going to do the same thing. It's been a very interesting evolution to watch of fintech and credit union partnership space. What changed?
A very good question. So maybe I'll start with the fintech side. So I think when fintechs entered the market, they brought this new and innovative technology and this just disruptive approach to the market. And rightfully so, they were seen as competitors who were encroaching on traditional financial services.
Mhm.
And, naturally, I agree that credit unions were worried that their members would get siphoned off. And so I think what these fintechs didn't fully grasp is that the credit union market is heavily regulated and it does contain many complex technology stacks and integration points. And so I think that these fintechs realize that going after the credit union members independently via B2C models was
Yeah,
extremely difficult because when it all came down to it, members still leverage their credit union for their core financial services, right? That's a very ingrained approach. And so I think fintechs finally realized this and they decided to continue to focus on their niche products and services, meaning not the whole financial relationship, but to
right.
do so with the credit union versus against them. And of course, it certainly didn't hurt, that credit unions have that established member base already that I just spoke
Oh,
about.
yeah.
So I think both sides realized it was a win-win relationship. It was reliant on fintechs to realize that, but I think that it's a win-win because credit unions receive innovative technologies while the fintech has access to the credit union's member base. And just last thing I'll add on this is, when I first started in fintech partnerships, I heard quite frequently talking to all these fintechs about, we started it on a B2C model, meaning something in the app store going directly to consumers. And
Mhm.
then we switched to a B2B model going through financial institutions, specifically credit unions. And the number of times that I've heard that over the last year has gone down significantly. So I think, again, fintechs finally realized it's better to go at it together than separately.
Well put. And I don't think people have been able to grasp or had the ability to answer it like you just did. So thank you for doing that. That was great.
Yeah, I would agree. That was a very succinct answer. If you can't beat them, join them, I guess, right? That's kind of what the
Mm.
fintechs were thinking back
You
then.
got it. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to, just best practices around credit union fintech partnerships, I did kind of touch on this a little bit already, but what do you think are some more essential attributes of a strong fintech partner? I mean, you've talked about, sharing the same vision, obviously, is a big part of it. What are some other things that credit unions should be looking for in a potential partner?
So, some of the things I tend to look for starters, is how many credit union clients does the fintech have, and can they provide credit union references? So, again, I'm going to reference that credit union network here because I love it. And I love that credit unions talk amongst themselves to help each other with decision making. And so, for me, if a fintech is really entrenched in the credit union space, that's a good sign because they most likely received positive testimonials from other credit unions who were sharing that information. Now, that's not to say that there are some good ones out there who are trying to break into the market but don't have credit union clients yet, because that absolutely is the case. But for those specific fintechs, I would ask them, why do you want to enter into the credit union market? And ensure that their vision aligns with the credit union ethos, which is super
Mhm.
important. I also look at customer retention. Naturally happy customers is a good sign. And even more importantly, I would inquire with the fintech on, for those that left, why? And if they're not able to clearly articulate an answer to you, that's a red flag for me. And perhaps most importantly, does this fintech's culture align with yours as a credit union? So to me, employee retention is big. And do they share similar values as yourself? Will you be valued as a client after you sign, or will you just turn into a number? even further, could you as a credit union help ideate into their roadmap? And so I
Mhm.
think that's one of those things where, if you're able to meet in person, it's great because you can really feel out culture better that way.
Mhm.
How essential, Chris, are these partnerships that are happening now to the existence of credit unions in the future? Big question.
Yeah, it is a big question. And for me, I think it's absolutely vital. We've certainly read about how financial institutions are aiming to become a one stop shop for all of their member needs. And I think that the ones who are focusing on that one stop shop are certainly winning the younger generation. So for me, to answer this question, I have to focus on that younger generation because we've all seen the stats about how Gen Z usage of credit unions is lacking, as well as how the average age of a credit union member is over that of the average population age. So I look at someone like SoFi, who maybe started as a student loan refinancer and then added
Mhm.
products and services over time. Now, naturally, SoFi went about that a lot via acquisition. But I think that whether it's that or partnerships, the fact is that Gen Z wants that one stop shop for all of their financial needs. And
Yeah.
from my perspective, as someone who speaks to both credit unions and fintechs quite frequently, I'm firmly under the impression that when you combine, in my opinion, the credit union's greatest strength, which is trust among their member base, with the fintech convenience as well as product specialization, meaning a fintech who just focuses on I think that's a winning recipe. And it's just unrealistic for a credit union to have 10 developers who are focusing just on AI. So that's just a good example of how partnerships, I think, are vital.
All right.
Right, right. Well, and I would say we appreciate the insight on Gen Z you've been giving throughout this interview because we're all very old here and feeling very out of touch. We're talking about this recently and we need insight into that. So, okay. Chris, one final question here before we move on to our second part of the interview. What is Valera's posture on credit unions leveraging fintech partnerships to achieve innovation? Now, I know we actually touched on this in the first question, but I guess do you have anything to add about how does Valera feel about credit unions partnering with fintechs, perhaps even to say design new products, services, or strategies to adapt to the changing member needs?
Yeah, this is my favorite question. So
Okay, good.
at Velera, we're absolutely doubling down on innovation in the space as we realize, the importance of the fact that the ecosystem is changing faster than ever before. So specifically, our board has dedicated resources towards innovation. Of course, fintechs are a big part of that via a whole new organization called Emerging Services. So that's actually where I sit. And so Emerging Services is essentially like a mini company within Velera that encompasses innovation strategists as well as our own dev team to do POCs and prototypes so that we can move into new verticals and concepts independently without impeding on the core Velera roadmap. So essentially serving as like an extension of the credit union's innovation team. So why did we start this? Well, we certainly recognize that prioritizing and funding new and innovative products within credit unions is often a challenge. And we believe that we can leverage our scale to facilitate fintech partnerships that benefit the movement as a whole versus going at it alone on a one-to-one basis. And last thing I'll say on this is that a key cornerstone of Emerging Services, which I'm super excited about, is our new Velera Innovation Alliance,
Mhm.
formerly known as the Fintech Advisory Board. We changed the name,
Yeah.
but it's currently being formed. And really, what it is it allows our member owners to test new innovative ideas via participating in proof of concepts with fintechs. So
Hmm.
for us, it's super important to have the voice of the member and our owners along with us on our journey. And as our CEO, Chuck Faggot, says, if you build it, they might come. But if you build it
Mhm.
with them, they're already there. So I think that
Yeah.
perfectly
Mm.
captures not just Emerging Services, but Valera as a whole.
Okay, very cool. Well, yeah, we look
Great.
forward to hearing more about that as you continue developing it. So that's awesome. Okay, Chris, let's go ahead and move into the final part of the interview. So these are just a set of questions that are not related to work and they're all about you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first question, where did you grow up? What's your hometown?
Yeah, so I grew up in New Hope, Pennsylvania. The
Okay,
way I describe it to people typically is that it's an hour north of Philly. So
Mhm.
it was a cool place to grow up.
cool. Okay.
If your hometown needed an updated slogan, what was the town name again?
New Hope.
New Hope. I don't know why I can't retain that. If New Hope needed an updated slogan or motto, what would you make that to be?
Oh man, that's a good one. I think what I would say is I would make the motto "That town on the river" because it's funny because
Okay.
whenever I talk to people who are from the area about New Hope
Uh,
and I tell them I'm from New Hope, the number one answer is, "Oh, that town on the river." So
Mm, okay.
so it's right on the Delaware River. So that's what a lot of
okay.
people think about it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, that dump, you know.
No.
So.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say that question, he went with a very neutral answer, but I feel like that question is really it's an opportunity if someone just wants to blast their hometown, they could
Yeah,
say
right.
something very unflattering if they wanted to. But yeah,
He
Sure.
took the
it's
high road, Natasha.
he did.
So
He must have,
good
yeah.
job, Chris.
People he doesn't want to offend still living there
Yeah.
probably.
There you
Okay. Next question, Chris. What is a talent that you have that not many people know about?
go. Ooh, let's see. So I actually play the drums. I'd
Oh,
Oh,
consider myself, yeah,
mm,
semi-retired. I have two young kids, so naturally it doesn't bode well to nap times. But I played in a band in college just to
okay.
earn some pocket money.
mhm,
So yeah, I'd say the fact that I play the drums is a semi-hidden
cool.
talent.
Okay, as a percussionist, can we explore this for a second?
Yes.
I did not know this. So, what kind of music did you play?
Yeah, so I would say, a little bit of classic rock, a little bit of alternative rock. So think Rolling Stones, the
Okay.
Black Keys, a little bit of older, a little bit of newer, kind of merged together.
Okay, so then I have to ask, who's your favorite drummer?
I have to go with Carter Buford from
Oh
Dave
my
Matthews Band.
God, he's so good. I love him.
He is the best.
We can talk paradiddles and rudiments later. Guess we should move on. This is the next question. As a kid, what was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
I'd have to go with Blue's Clues. So I guess I just liked the adventure
Okay.
aspect of it, which I think it's still on TV today, actually.
I don't know. Quick side note, I knew somebody who dated Steve.
Wow. That is so that's a good fact for you right there.
Blue's
I
Clues
have
was
no
great.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Natasha's like, what the hell are you talking
I
about?
have no idea what you're talking and I'm wondering why, because I'm usually the youngest person in a group of work people often, and I'm
This
thinking,
is
when
newer,
did
so
this
you wouldn't have been watching this,
No, so I'm
actually.
okay, so I might be
Yeah.
yeah, because
I'm a
mine were like
90s
I was thinking, what was mine? And I was thinking of, like, the Tasmanian Devil was one that I liked. I
Oh,
don't know.
the character, sure.
Remember that? It was really
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, yeah, what decade was all this happening
Blue's
in?
Clues. That's a
But
great call.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Alright, well, let's continue to age you or not age you. What was the first album you ever listened to or was, like, your favorite album that you bought or remember listening to a lot?
Oh man. So I don't think this is an album per se, but whenever I think of my first like song that I was into,
Uh-huh.
and it's funny because as soon as I say this, you'll be able to assign me to the generation that
Got
I'm
it.
in. Is "I'm Blue" by Eiffel 65. You remember that song?
Mhm.
Oh
No.
my gosh,
Blue?
it's like
Oh,
"I'm
okay.
blue, dabba
Oh.
diba oh
Oh
man,
my God, that one. Okay.
Oh, okay. That
Sure.
one, yeah. Now I get you just had to sing it. Okay.
yeah." Which sorry about that. I'm not a good singer,
No,
No.
no, that's fine, yeah.
but
We're
yes, I'm a millennial.
we're compiling a Spotify playlist of all our shared accounts with CU Times guest music picks, so we'll have to add that to the list.
Yeah, that's a great one. Speaking of that, really quick, Chris, right before we recorded, I mentioned this. We weren't able to expand on it, but I want to ask you, growing up with a name like Chris Corse, how much crap did you get when Chris Cross came out with Jump?
Oh, so much, and my response is always, I will not make you jump.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, quite frequently, but I learned to just roll with it.
I love alliteration, so therefore I love your name.
Yeah.
Great.
That's great.
Okay, Chris, final question. What was the last movie you watched?
Yeah, so, I mentioned I have two young kids, so my movie watching is few and far between right now, but
Got it.
I did watch Gladiator on TV the other day, and I love
Oh,
that movie, and I'm excited for Gladiator 2 to come out, I think
hmm
this year.
Hmm.
So,
yeah, Ridley Scott's second attempt at Gladiator. Yeah.
All right, and finally, Chris, before we end it here, where can people connect or find you or for our listeners here if they'd like to reach out to you after listening to the podcast? How can they find you online?
yes, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to chat more about fintechs and the path to innovation.
Okay,
Great.
awesome. All right. Well, Chris Corse, Principal of Emerging Services at Velera, thank you so much for coming on today. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thanks,
You're very
Chris.
welcome. Thanks so much, Chris. And for all of our listeners, please subscribe to Shared Accounts with CU Times anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever. You know how this works. And if you want to rate us, we would love your feedback. And for those of you with questions or comments, feel free to email me over at nchillingarian@cutimes.com, or you can always email Michael at mogden@cutimes.com.
Also, a very big thank you to Velera for sponsoring the podcast this month, formerly PSU and Co-op Solutions. Velera, you're awesome. Thank you also to our producer, Zach Nyheisel. Thanks, Zach. Join us again next week for a new episode of Shared Accounts with CU Times. Until then, thanks for listening.